Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Johnson, and I'm a programmer here at Planet in Focus. And I would like to introduce director Liz Marshall, who is with me today. Her current film is Meat the Future, which chronicles the birth of the clean meat or cell-based meat industry in America through the eyes of pioneer Dr. Uma Valetti, the founder of Memphis Meats. So I have Liz here with me today, joining us from where?
Hi, Leslie. Hi, everyone. I'm in Vancouver, and I am a writer in residence at the Joy Kagawa House.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
Yes, thanks.
So thank you for being here with me today. Um, I guess just to begin, my first question is, what motivated you to tell this story? And, as someone who's embraced a non-meat lifestyle, what was it about cell-based or clean meat that really compelled you to make a documentary about meat?
Great questions. So back in 2016, I was really actively seeking, looking for, the next story that I would really commit myself to. As we know, getting a feature-length documentary off the ground is, it's a
Challenge.
feat. It's an enormous challenge. It takes years, and you really need to be deeply committed to, you know, all aspects of what that takes. So I learned about the innovation and the advent of this huge idea in the media. And I started doing research and learning more. And then I discovered that I actually knew some people that were linked and associated within the ecosystem of what is broadly referred to as cellular agriculture. And it is the innovation of real meat or eggs or dairy or fish, and includes leather as well, and gelatin, animal products from cells. So it's like the cell up as opposed to the animal down. And obviously that is a revolutionary idea. It's a new concept. It's potentially solution based. And I was really actively seeking something that is character driven, that is active and unfolding, but also solution oriented. In my work, my portfolio, over the decades, making nonfiction documentary stories shot around the globe, sometimes you can feel kind of defeated. There's a lot of urgent, critical, and often depressing subject content out there. And I'm someone that also wants to focus on, what is the problem, but how can we actually potentially move forward? How can we solve this, or how can we shift and transform? And transformation is a key word and theme that I use when I talk about this project and this big idea. So getting exclusive access behind the scenes was critical to moving forward to make the film back in 2016. And I was able to secure that. And the more I learned, and then meeting the individuals behind the scenes that are actually getting this off the ground, I felt inspired. And I had an instinct and I had a shiver that led me on the journey. And I think that really sums it up right there. I didn't know personally what I thought or felt ultimately about this big concept, but it certainly piqued. Um, like I said, it's about transformation, but it's also about the miracle of what is possible when we can do good things through science and technology and innovation. And that is why it's a character-driven story, because that humanizes this big idea, and it grounds it, anchors it, in someone that I believe is a really fascinating human being, Dr. Uma Valetti, who I think will probably go down in history as a pioneer.
So let's talk about Dr. Valetti and that instinct that you had. So when you first connected with him, what was it about him and the work that he was doing that made you decide that this is the guy that I want to tell this story? Um, and maybe talk a little bit about just the challenge of following an unfolding storyline in general. I mean, you're following a company and a technology that had an uncertain future at the time in 2016. So, what was that process like for you? And yeah, just back to Dr. Valetti, what was it about him and his story that really motivated you to make him the face of this documentary?
So Uma Valetti is someone that I had a feeling that he you know would make a great protagonist in this story because of his backstory, but also his laser focus, his intelligence, his humble, quiet, kind of charming demeanor. Um, but he was born and raised in the south of India. He emigrated to America as a young man to train at the Mayo Clinic as a cardiologist. He then went on to become a successful cardiologist, but he took a risky, passion driven career turn in 2015 to co-found Memphis Meats, which is a startup company based in the Bay Area of California. And he's the CEO of that company. And I liked Uma as the entry point to this idea because I like the subtext of the immigrant story. I like that he's a man of color. So he's from another part of the world and he came to America and he's now, someone that is supported by Richard Branson and Bill Gates. And, he's a leading figure in this new field. Of course, and you touched on this, there was total uncertainty. So in 2016, he of course was taking the greatest risk. But I too, as a filmmaker, I was taking a huge risk to um, sink myself into this and commit myself to getting this off the ground. Memphis Meats could have sort of dissolved. It could have, faded away into the ethers or something, like lots of startups, lots of small, startups that's just the way it is. So instead though, and Meet the Future charts the extraordinary story that takes place over 3.5 years. We followed them from 2016 to 2019. And in fact, he sort of rises in prominence as a visionary and as a CEO. So yes, he is taking the greatest risk of all. But as a filmmaker, I too was taking a huge risk without having any sense of compass around what could or would happen. But we always do that as filmmakers, as documentary filmmakers. That's part of the precarious nature of our work. We have to rely on our instinct in some way, but also other indicators that would lead us in a certain direction.
Yeah, well, it was a big risk that paid off because, it's a very exciting, opportunity to capture such a incredible subject and right at the birth of this technology that's happening. So, that was an excellent instinct that did pay off. And that kind of rolls into my next question. So you started following this story in 2016. What have been some of the most exciting shifts in the clean meat industry since that time? And where do you think that the biggest hurdles still lie for us to see this product coming to market?
Okay, sure. And I didn't answer your question about meat eating. as a non-meat eater.
Yeah.
I can come back to that if you want, but um, so where is it now? So we wrapped up the film in early, 2020, and it had its world premiere during COVID at Hot Docs and on CBC, Hot Docs at Home on CBC in the spring of 2020. And right before that happened, Memphis Meats unveiled huge news once again that they had secured 161 million in financing towards their first prototype production facility. And that was a great twist because in 2019, one of the last shoots that we did was a tour. They were, scouting a production facility that would be the world's first production facility for this um, new product, in preparation for it getting to market. So that was great news. That happened in February of 2020. But since then, there's startups popping up all over the globe. COVID is accelerating the alternative meat protein sector. Um, it is a sector that will continue to grow because we need solutions from a global health perspective, from through the lens of zoonotic disease, which is what COVID-19 is, which is, you can trace it all through our history, zoonoses. It's when, it's virus, bacteria, germs passed from animals to humans when they're in cramped quarters or slaughterhouses. So, this could also prevent the next pandemic. That's something that's also being talked about. But then also through the lens of the climate crisis, the climate emergency, which the film frames
Mhm.
again and again, all the way through. We need solutions now. And animal agriculture, takes up roughly 45% of the world's land surface area. It's a risk, a threat to biodiversity, to water. Greenhouse gas emissions are, um, a huge issue, and it's now finally being talked about. Um, you know, uh, Often or historically, when we're talking about climate and environmental risk and impact, we're talking about the energy sector only. But now there's a big shift that's happened, and we're now talking about industrial animal agriculture and its impact on the environment, on biodiversity, etc., land use. So this is part of that story because we need many solutions. There's not one solution. We need to come at this from various angles. And Meet the Future is an exclusive film about the birth of an industry. And we were really there at the genesis phase of something that really is a revolution that if it gets off the ground, it could really change not only how meat gets to the plate, but also how we think about food production.
And do you think, do you see a future where this will change the consumption of meat very drastically? Do you see this production change? Do you think cell-based meat will um, have a major shift that we'll see over the course of our lifetime?
I do. I mean, if we step back and we look at, in a pragmatic sense, we look at, okay, what are the statistics? Roughly 90% of the world eats animal-based meat protein. And vegetarianism and veganism and plant-based meat, through the Impossible Burger and through Beyond Burger and, things like that are on the rise. So that is growing. And estimates, there's estimates that say that in high income countries like ours, meat eating could be halved, so be reduced by 50% by 2030. The Lancet report that came out in 2019, very, very clear, that we need to increase our intake of plant-based proteins if we're going to save Mother Earth. And, so cell-based meat could actually transform the meat industry and become, increasingly a larger percentage of how to replace conventionally produced meat, which is industrial animal agriculture, which makes up roughly, maybe 99% of how and where people are getting their meat from now. The very niche, small percentage is local, small, regenerative agricultural places and practices. And that's not going away. But we're looking at the industrial system of how meat gets to the plate. It's extremely damaging. And it's so cumbersome. And we need solutions that, are pragmatic, because most of the world eats meat. So in growing economies like India, like China, Brazil, other countries like that, where there's also growing populations, meat consumption is actually on the rise. Now, I don't know if those statistics and forecasts are shifting now because of COVID, but those benchmarks have been in place for a while. And that's part of the motivation for making a film like this.
Circling back to my original question of why a vegetarian or vegan is making a film about meat.
Yeah, because I care about animals, I care about the planet, I care about human health, I care about world hunger, and I'm an idealist, but I'm a pragmatist. I'm both. And so I think we need big ideas and big solutions to deal with reality. And reality is that most of the world eats meat, and that we need, a humane and way to produce meat that has a really small environmental footprint.
Yeah.
So if this is an answer, then wow. I mean, this film is like a historical document that can
Yeah.
be seen for many, many, many years, about, the entry point being one startup and visionary CEO, but that's like a microcosm to represent all the others that are popping up around the globe.
Now, you are a filmmaker who has had a very notable history with impact campaigns associated with your films. So I wanted to ask, where does the documentary go from here? And how can the public get involved with helping cell-based meat become more of a viable alternative and I guess more quickly come to market?
So that's an important thing for people to understand, is that this is not yet regulated and on the market. And when you watch Meet the Future, you will understand a little bit about that regulatory storyline, which sounds kind of dry and boring, but it's actually fascinating. As a filmmaker, I had never focused on, the birth of an industry before, or a food product, or anything like this. So I was just a constant learner, just, fascinated every step of the way. But so it's not yet on the market, but they say that within the next couple of years, so maybe 2021, 2022, we'll start seeing cultivated meat, cell-based meat, clean meat. This is the nomenclature to describe what it is. They haven't yet decided on what the labels, what it will be called, but we'll start seeing this product in grocery stores. And then of course the big game changer will be when it is being produced on par or cheaper than conventional meat. And if it gets picked up by a fast food chain, that's, you know,
Hmm.
a game changer. But um, I would say that for people who want to learn more, get involved, be part of the conversation, first of all, follow us on social media. It's a really strange time for everyone, but releasing a documentary during COVID is so strange. I mean, I'm used to traveling with films during this phase and being in rooms with people and doing Q&As and really feeling, you know, getting a gauge of how the film is affecting people. And that's such a important part of the process, you know, when you're engaged in an impact campaign. So we're just getting started, and you know, we've got a great team. And you know, follow us on social media, check out our website. And if you'd like to get involved in our impact campaign or support it, please be in touch, because meetthefuture.com, we've got a contact page. Be in touch with us, because this is an exclusive film about this topic, and we have such an opportunity here to reach people and be that vehicle for wide global dialogue and discussion and awareness building about what this is.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what is next for you, Liz?
Well, I'm at the Joy Kagawa House in Vancouver, which is lovely. I just got here the other day, and I'm a writer in residence, and I'm actually, as a director, but also as a writer, I'm co-developing, co-writing my first fiction script that has a very strong environmental focus. And my co-writer is also my longtime friend and colleague. His name is Michael Glassberg, and he's not here, but we'll be working remotely. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also developing a music documentary with a team in Toronto. So yeah, life goes on, and doing lots of Q&As and interviews for Meet the Future, and just really trying to get Meet the Future out there.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on the documentary. And good luck with the campaign.
Thanks.
Thank
It's good to see you too.
you.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Take care.